We've created this new Planet X Special Report series to address the fear, uncertainty, and doubt, or what's known as FUD, that's out there on the internet today regarding Planet X. We have been researching in this field of space threats since 1999. And what we see is that much of this FUD is artificially engineered by disinformation operatives who, in our opinion, are well organized and very well funded. Another question we do get from folks is, what would a Planet X flyby look like? In our February 2009 video report, we offered 8 different flyby scenarios, ranging from a rather mild best-case scenario to a devastating worst-case scenario. However, regardless of which of these scenarios may come to pass, we have already seen what a Planet X flyby will look like in part. September 2009 shall be forever remembered as the month we added a new term to the lexicon of catastrophic Earth changes, the Sydney-style dust storm. On September 22nd, Sydney, Australia, and its adjacent communities were blanketed with dust from the red soil blown in from the western regions of the country. As you can see in this comparative of the Sydney Opera House, the clear, beautiful blue skies of this modern city were choked with a blinding red dust that blocked visibility. It forced the young, aged, and infirmed to remain indoors, while the many commuter ferries that crisscross Sydney's bay each day with work-bound commuters were forced to remain idle at moorings. This storm was first brought to our attention by a Yowza subscriber, Sharon, who lives in a bedroom community adjacent to Sydney, due east of the city center. She sent us these photos she took from her home, looking out her bedroom window. No matter what scenario is involved for Planet X, this is one of the things we'll see with each and every one. Ladies and gentlemen, Planet X, 2012, and catastrophic Earth changes are no longer an issue of idle speculation or entertainment. Rather, it is about you, your loved ones, and whether or not you choose to fight for your lives. If you're looking to our leaders for answers, know this: they're part of a system of political and corporate elites with their own agendas that may or may not coincide with our own. Nonetheless, these very different agendas provided us with valuable new information in 2008 and 2009 that corroborates our original Planet X orbital forecast. We saw the onset of a massive disinformation campaign, and the goal of this campaign was to lead people down unproductive rabbit holes so that they would become discouraged and leave the topic. Well, it's not working for them. And in fact, what we did find was rather valuable information. To understand that, we need to start with their principal attack method, what we call the ecliptic false positives. The best way to visualize the ecliptic is to start at a point in the center of the sun and then go out in a flat plane from there through the known planets and moons of our solar system, and finally on out to the 12 constellations of the zodiac. This is what we call the ecliptic, the plane of our solar system. Above the ecliptic are the northern skies. Below the ecliptic are the southern skies. For the purpose of this program, we need to replace the designations of east and west, so to speak, with towards the center of our solar system and out to the edge of the solar system. The ecliptic is an important concept for understanding where Planet X is presently in relationship to our sun and to using these ecliptic false positives. The first ecliptic false positive surfaced in early 2008 with the missing Orion star panels, as reported by YouTuber No Star Panel on our site. Powerful disinformation groups had managed to corrupt the celestial databases of 3 major sky viewing websites. The purpose was to mislead the public by falsely drawing their attention with planted information along the ecliptic and out beyond the edge of our solar system. Towards late 2008, this scam sputtered out, and disinformation wolf packs began pushing people in the opposite direction, towards the center of our solar system, with a new scam. We call them the bogus cell phone sundog photos and Soho red herrings. By early 2009, the public began catching on to these scams, and citizen journalists on YouTube began debunking them. We cannot begin to tell you how pleased we were to see this. It reminds us of that great quote from the American President Abraham Lincoln. You can fool all of the people some of the time, and some of the people all of the time, but you cannot fool all of the people all of the time. Ladies and gentlemen, you're not sheeple, and you're not buying these disinformation scams, and the operatives and those who employ them know it. Consequently, we're now seeing a new wave of reckless disinformation and propaganda non-event predictions designed to create more fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and thereby disinterest the public. So beware. That being said, these disinformation ecliptic false positives we've just discussed have given us information of great value. It is because now we know where not to look for Planet X at this time. Rather, we need to keep looking where we have always looked, towards the southern skies. Not just because this is the very part of the sky disinformation wolf packs want to turn us away from, but also this is because where the available science we're reporting on our site continues to point. So with all this in mind, let's see if we can cut through this malevolent fog and take a look at where we believe Planet X could have been in September 2009. What the disinformation, ecliptic false positives of 2008 and 2009 show us is that we were pretty much on the money right from the get-go. We published our book, Planet X Forecast and 2012 Survival Guide, with an estimated orbit for Planet X through 2014. Prepared by Dutch physicist Jaco van der Warp, it shows Planet X approaching the core of our system from the south. We will present two slides prepared as an update for this report by Jaco van der Warp, showing where he estimates Planet X to be as of September 2009. Please note, I will be using the term astronomical unit, or AU for short. An astronomical unit is the approximate distance from the Earth to the Sun. For example, the Earth orbits the Sun at a distance of 1 AU. Jupiter, on the other hand, orbits the Sun at a distance of 5.2 AU. Or in other words, it is 5 times further away from the Sun than the Earth. Now let's take a look at our first slide. In this slide, you can see the orbital path of Planet X, which is steeply inclined to the ecliptic. Jaco currently estimates the distance between Planet X and the Sun to be 9.9 astronomical units. Now let's imagine we're standing on the South Pole. Here is slide number 2. Here we're looking above the horizon at an angle of approximately 60 degrees, and Planet X is in the constellation Pictor. Now let's address the 5 reasons why we're not seeing Planet X at this time. We know Planet X has been here before, and we have the ancient accounts of the Sumerians, Egyptians, Celts, and many more. They've all given us various different descriptions of the object. For example, in the ancient wisdom texts we publish called the Kolbrin Bible, the ancient Egyptians called it the Destroyer, whereas the ancient Sumerians called it Nibiru. Consequently, there are a lot of different ideas as to the nature of this object. In our February 2009 report, we discussed 3 possible variants: an asteroid-like object, comet-like object, and mini-constellation. Until Planet X is officially observed, it could be anything, although we do know it is big. Otherwise, it would not be interacting with the other bodies in our system as it does. Each of these 3 variants has its own observation peculiarities, and these are exacerbated by the fact that this object is in a comet-like orbit. Regardless of what type of object Planet X turns out to be, one thing we do know is that it is in a comet-like orbit, and that makes it very unpredictable. A good example is comet Hale-Bopp. It was the most widely observed comet of the last century, and it was dubbed the Great Comet of 1997. At the time of its discovery in 1995, it was estimated to be in a 4,200-year orbit around our Sun. However, in 1996, it passed within 0.77 AU of Jupiter. To help put that in perspective, Venus orbits our Sun at a distance of approximately 0.72 AU. So, as a result of a 0.77 AU flyby past Jupiter, Hale-Bopp's 4,200-year orbit was shortened by 40% to just 2,533 years. How could this happen? Just as with Planet X, Hale-Bopp's orbit around our Sun is steeply inclined to the ecliptic, which makes it inherently unstable. And the substantial reduction in its orbit is explained by a theory called the Kozai mechanism. You can learn more about the Kozai mechanism on the internet, and it is covered extensively in our book Planet X Forecast and 2012 Survival Guide. As we've often pointed out in our book and on our websites, this object is in an unstable comet-like orbit. Simply stated, Planet X is a fast traveler, and its orbit is steeply inclined to the ecliptic. Ergo, its orbital behavior is highly unpredictable and subject to change at any time. This will become even more pronounced as Planet X closes the distance between itself and our Sun. The closing distance between Planet X and the Sun is very important for us to consider. Now let's take another look at that first slide prepared by Jaco van der Warp. He currently estimates the distance between Planet X and the Sun to be 9.9 astronomical units. That is nearly twice the distance between Jupiter and the Sun. This is an important fact because comets are not typically observed until they're inside the orbit of Jupiter. They must come this close to the Sun before they develop a coma and tail. This in turn helps to also explain why Planet X is going to be difficult to observe at this time, assuming it is a comet-like object. To help give us a perspective on the Planet X transit through the southern skies, let's return to Jaco van der Warp's second slide. When we presented the second slide, the one where we are looking from the South Pole out into space, we're doing so at an angle of approximately 60 degrees up from the horizon. When we do so, our estimate places Planet X in the constellation of Pictor. The arcing line of the orbit suggests that Planet X will follow a steady, plodding course as it moves from left to right towards the constellation Vela. However, this is not the case because of 2 reasons. First, the manner in which the Earth rotates on its poles as it relates to our view of the night sky. And secondly, because Planet X is in a comet-like orbit that is steeply inclined to the ecliptic. We therefore estimate that by August 2010, Planet X will enter the constellation of Carina, where it will begin to speed up a bit, as is the case with comet-like orbits. During this time, the distance between Planet X and the Sun will be decreasing, while at the same time the angle of its orbit will be increasing. This decreasing distance and increasing angle will continue and even speed up as Planet X approaches the ecliptic. Assuming Planet X continues following this orbital path, regardless of what type of object it may be, the fact is it's going to be heading towards the Milky Way, and that creates a whole new kind of viewing problem. When viewing an object in the night sky, you must be able to differentiate between it and the star field behind it. To illustrate the complexity of this, let's assume that you are going to a candlelight vigil to meet a friend. You know what your friend looks like, and you know he or she will be holding a candle. But when you arrive, spotting your friend becomes a very difficult proposition. The same holds true with Planet X. At this time, it is about to pass through the most magnificent candlelight vigil, if you will, in our night sky, the Milky Way. With that in mind, let's return to our second image of the South Pole view. Here we see Planet X slowly making its way along its orbital path towards the constellation Vela. In this slide, we are showing you the position of Planet X relative to the South Pole point of view. Now, let's take the same panel slide and increase the brightness. The light gray area that runs through the right side of the image from the constellation Bella down through to the constellation Canis Major is the Milky Way. So not only is Planet X twice the distance from our Sun as Jupiter, it is passing through an area of the sky that receives less than 2% of our attention, and one with a very dense background star field at that. Ergo, what you've got is the proverbial Planet X needle in a cosmic haystack. So who will officially announce the discovery of Planet X? Certainly not some run-by fruiter with a cell phone. Rather, we believe that honor will most likely go to Project Wormwood, a planetary defense group at the Learmonth Solar Observatory, located on the northwest cape of Western Australia. Now let's move on to the most likely worst-case Planet X flyby scenario. This is the difficult part of this video briefing for us as Planet X researchers, because we really do understand how these various different Planet X flyby scenarios could work out. I can remember back in 2002 and 2003 when I was making guest appearances on Coast to Coast and saying clever things like, the surface of the Earth could wiggle like a bowl of Jell-O. With a comfortable distance of time, such clever radio sound bites were all too easy. Yet as clever as they were, perhaps it turns out they could be closer to what may happen than I could have imagined. In February of this year, we published a report with 8 different flyby scenarios, ranging from the best case to the worst case. I strongly urge you to view that video if you have not already done so. In this video briefing, I'm going to take a look at what could be a likely worst-case scenario. I want to strongly emphasize to you before I do this that there is no true likely worst-case scenario. This is an unstable object, it's a fast mover, and things could change at any time. I want to strongly urge you, the viewer, to understand that when Planet X crosses the ecliptic, it will go into an area we call the kill zone. We fully explained the kill zone in our February 2009 report. For now, what we need to keep in mind is that this is when the worst case, or the best case scenario for that matter, will occur. Assuming there can only be one best case scenario and likewise one worst case scenario, the odds of one of the other happening is 50-50. This is because a best case scenario can only happen if Planet X passes through the kill zone while it is on the side of the Sun opposite from Earth. However, if Planet X passes through the kill zone while it is on our side of the Sun, then that is when the most likely worst-case scenario will occur. As we have stated in this video and countless other times, this object is a fast mover in a comet-like orbit, and it is unpredictable. So a definitive estimate as to whether we'll have a best-case or a worst-case scenario is virtually impossible. Even if we could somehow manage to connect all of the computers in the world together to form one massive computing machine, it would be hard-pressed to better our 50-50 odds at this time. Because of these limitations, the best we can do now is to prepare for the worst and hope for the best. And there's only one way we can really do that at this point in time. We must look beyond the limits of traditional science into a realm of inquiry where we take into account prophecies from the Holy Bible, Mother Shipton, Nostradamus, Leonardo da Vinci, and many others. Taken all together, what we see is a recurring pattern consistent with the pole shift prophecy of the sleeping prophet, Edgar Cayce. With this in mind, we've watched the trailers for the forthcoming 2012 movie by Sony with great interest. While there is nothing in the trailers to explain how these events come about, what we see as Planet X researchers is very clearly an Edgar Cayce pole shift. So if you really want to know what the worst case scenario would be, then go watch the movie. And yes, keep in mind it is Hollywood, and that they are taking creative license, and that they tend to exaggerate things. However, when we look at it, at least from what we see from the trailers, it's a spot-on Edgar Cayce pole shift, complete with mega tsunamis, superquakes, and supervolcano eruptions. One thing we've noticed with Sony's 2012 movie trailers is that they open with this really ominous 2012 Mayan prediction. Well, the Maya were telling us something much more than that. Yes, it's the end of an era, but it's also the beginning of a new era. And let's keep that in mind as we look at what could be a possible worst-case scenario for 2012 and beyond. Our book, Planet X Forecast and 2012 Survival Guide, was written with one very specific audience in mind. Not dabblers, not those who are curious, but rather we wrote it for people who get it and want to get through it. And for that reason, we've listed out the various catastrophic threats. Well, topping that list is solar violence. Even if, for the sake of argument, Planet X was completely taken out of the picture for 2012. Are there still threats? Are there still concerns? Well, yes, there are. And you should be very concerned, because our current solar cycle will reach its maximum in 2012. And if what the scientists are telling us holds true, that's when all hell breaks loose. So what will all hell breaking loose look like in 2012? Well, we have a historical model for that. It's called the Great Storm of 1859. In an article published in October 2003 on Space.com, Science writer Robert Roy Britt takes us back in time to 1859. Simply put, this solar storm remains the most violent ever recorded in American history, and it was 3 times more powerful than anything we've ever seen since the end of World War II. However, in 1859, the state of technology was primitive. It was mostly telegraph lines running through both America and Europe. These telegraph lines shorted out during the storm of 1859 and consequently ignited numerous widespread fires on both continents. Not only that, in Hawaii, they reported seeing the aurora borealis. Of course, this begs the question, if a solar storm such as the one that struck the Earth in 1859 were to strike today, what would that mean for us? Once again, we turn to the author, Robert Roy Britt. In an article written for Fox News in January 2009, Mr. Britt examines the implications of an 1859 event happening today. Britt tells us in this article for Fox that should another storm as powerful as the one that hit America and Europe in 1859 hit us again, particularly in 2012, it could shut down the United States for months. This according to the National Academy of Sciences, which has also expressed the opinion that there is a very great likelihood of another such storm occurring in 2012. So what would that mean? Well, just in the United States alone, 113 million Americans would find themselves in a blackout. Not one lasting a few days, but rather a blackout lasting several months. This is totally consistent with a 2012 warning given on Fox News by physicist Dr. Michio Kaku, as noted in our February 2009 report.
Satellites, satellite television, all of that could get disrupted, peaking around 2012.
So your point is we can't do anything about it in space, but we can do something back here on Earth.
That's right.
But backup systems, are companies really doing that?
Well, they're going to have to do it because, see, we scientists made a mistake.
Now, before we move on, I want to make one thing perfectly clear. We are not glorifying Fox News here. As a matter of fact, the news entertainer, I don't call them reporters anymore, the news entertainer that interviewed Dr. Michio Kaku has a new formula. 2012 equals Y2K. You know, the millennium bug. Well, that begs the question, where are you at with all this? Are you saying, I'll believe it when I see it? And if so, let me ask you this. What are you going to see when the whole nation is blacked out for months as the result of a violent solar storm? While you ponder that, let's move on to the closing thoughts for this video briefing, and that being what we believe to be the greater significance of 2012. When we first began researching Earth changes, space threats back in 1999, and then later moving into Planet X research in 2001, we really didn't see 2012. It simply was not on the radar scope. However, as the years passed and the data came in, we began witnessing this incredible convergence upon this 2012 date. A breathtaking convergence, one comprised of science, history, prophecy, and human evolution. And at the point of it all was the Mayan calendar. The essential message of the Mayan calendar, the one that is accepted by all those who debate it from one side or the other, is that the prophecy represents the end of one era and the beginning of another. Therefore, looking at December 21, 2012 is not about assuming that a cosmic intelligence or deity or whatever you happen to believe is going to throw a big switch on that day, and then something humongous is going to happen. As Planet X researchers, it is just a waypoint for us. That's all. But I would hasten to add that it is a significant waypoint. It is significant because it will be a defining moment in time, like December 7th, 1941, or 9/11. We believe that 2012 will be remembered as a year of redemption, a time when humanity is forced to examine its foibles and to realize that we have not been good guardians of this world. And at that point, we are going to face a destiny decision, and one that is best described for us by the Hopi Prophecy Rock. The Hopi Prophecy Rock is centuries old, and it tells us that if we continue along on our present path of service to self, based on greed, fear, and exploitation, then we will become a slave species for countless generations to come. And only until our world has been so brutally raped that it is of no interest to anyone will we be given our freedom for whatever time remains. But if we redeem ourselves and choose the service to others path, what happens then? Well, something beautiful. This other path will lead us in a direction of compassion, coexistence, tolerance, and a loving respect for each other and our world. Should we find the courage to make the wise choice, to take the noble path, where will it lead us? To a bright future. The generation that follows 2012 will be the most important population of humans in the history of our species. They will lay the groundwork of the future. They will rebuild. They will move on. And consequently, our descendants will make their ways to the stars. There, they shall not number in the billions, as we do today, but in the hundreds of billions. And it will be a bright and enlightened future for our species. So imagine with me for just a moment this distant future, and assume that you are one of our future descendants, grateful for our noble sacrifices, and looking back in time at the year 2012, the year of redemption. How will you remember it? Well, for us, 2012 will be the last year of this era, and likewise we'll have 2013 and 2014 and so on. However, should we choose the noble path shown us in the ancient Hopi Prophecy Rock, the future generations will look back upon the year 2013 by another name. They will call it 1AE, for the first year of the Age of Enlightenment. We at Yowza.com do all that we do because we're in it for the species, and because we do believe that humanity will make the wise choice. We will take the noble path, and there will be a 1AE. And I'll leave it on that note. So until the next time we meet, remember Marshall's motto: destiny comes to those who listen, and fate finds the rest. So learn what you can learn, do what you can do, and never give up hope. And this is Marshall, and I'll catch you on the backside.
First thing I want to look at here, though, guys, check this. Just watch this. Look at this. This manifestation in Alaska is getting crazy out of control, guys. Look at this. Let me blow it in, and I'm going to suck right in on it. No photo manipulation. Doesn't it look like that opening sequence orb? Very interesting and compelling. But that's not the best Alaska footage I got while I was gone. Look at what happened in this sequence. Look at how detailed the orb is. You can see holes and pits on it. And I can only guess why it's so much clearer. But we can back this up a little bit and just kind of take a look at it. But this is getting to the point where it's like Look, if anybody wants to debate me on Planet X or Nibiru or Nemesis or any of that kind of stuff, they're going to have to explain what the heck this is to me. Because they're going to lose that debate unless they're ready for that. Because this is clearly showing something that's not supposed to be in our skies, guy. Next thing I'm showing you, though, this is from May 16th. This is out of Craig Southwest. But what's really interesting how this changes colors. But when I looked at this through some filters, there's another planet in the background or something, some large orb and another third orb. But look at the detail that we're seeing this planet or whatever it is. It's amazing, you know? And so just incredible, okay? And what's really interesting, if I go back to these images of it, there's one of these images where it looks like it's like the orb that's down in South Davis Station. Then one of my good subscribers, hey Matt, really got something going here with this one, because as we see this orb, as you know, we speculate that there is when we see images like this, because sometimes we do see this as a kind of a flaring effect. What we really might be seeing, as we've postulated many times, that this is actually reflecting off that layer that they're chemtrailing in our skies. This might be the real object down here, and this is a reflection off of that layer of the atmosphere. Very interesting stuff, you know. And then this one. Check this out. What we're going to see here as this goes over is that orb appears, and I'm going to blow in on that. I got you guys over again, at spaceweathersolarham.net. And the nice thing about this site, you guys, is you can get all the information that we research, but each one of these things come with a little explanation for you too, so that's kind of helpful. But the graph the model I want to go to right now is the CME model. And as you can see, we got smucked with a pretty good burst CME-wise. That was almost a direct hit on the Earth. Can you see that hitting? And so we had some pressure. Definitely had some pressure today, and it was definitely one of those kind of boom moments. But whenever I look at this model, you guys, I'm always looking at these field lines, and I'm trying to wonder where Earth's field line is connecting out in space right now. Number one, but number two, we still have these intense, I want to call CME jets coming off the sun, or are being caused by something outside of the circle here, okay? And we've always contended that, but this particular CME today was a pretty, big one. You know what I mean? So let's take a quick look at the earthquake report. And I want to just go this really quick. And the reason I want to kind of look at this, I want to just kind of take a look at just 4.5 and above in the last 30 days, guys. And when I was looking at this is getting to the point where there has been a ton of activity around the ring of fire. And as we click out, we can see that it's just these are larger earthquakes, you know? So again, am I trying to promote fear porn? No. What am I trying to do? I don't want us to be stupid, man. I don't want us to end up with the Feminati, okay? I want people to be able to keep their head together when they see this thing in the sky. Now I'm pretty convinced it's coming. And now what we're doing is we're building a professional organization to handle what is going to be, literally hundreds and thousands of people that we're going to try to help. If we're going to do anything, we can make people aware. That's great. But I feel like if I'm not doing my best to try to build an organization that can help people and not be BS and not be running out of money every 5 minutes, and again, it's very difficult to keep this thing afloat, but because of you, we do, and I love you for it. I love you, my friends. I really, really do. So the second thing I want to say is this is an anti-fear channel. We want to promote awareness. We want to promote understanding, and we want to promote, most of all, the spiritual understanding that God is love. And what that means, you guys, is anything that's not love is something you probably should not be paying attention to. So let's keep with that in mind. Look for WSO Live. We're going to be interviewing Gerald Clark. We have much more content with Bad Baby. We had a guest on this week that just went up on WSO Live, a Dr. Eugene, who actually has found that cannabis paste, not the kind you get high on, is a food product that is very, very important, and we might have discovered why they made it illegal. It's not just the recreational properties or the pain-killing properties. It's actually, this stuff is like they call it endocannabinoid system. So check that out on WSO Live. I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful day. I'm glad to be back. I can't wait to see you guys more tomorrow. Bye-bye.
There are increasing indications that Planet X, also known as Nibiru, is moving in a precise direction towards planet Earth. So what does this suggest for those of us who dwell on this planet? Is there actually a biblical link that correlates with the end times as we know it? Many of you believe that NASA and other government bodies, such as the Pentagon and the CIA, are aware of its approach. Your belief carries considerable weight, considering the recent publication of scientific studies claiming that there is proof of an unnamed mysterious planet lurking beyond Pluto. The claim was determined by observations of gravitational influences on a group of celestial bodies called the extreme trans-Neptunian objects, which are orbiting our sun beyond Neptune. The approach of the mysterious planet Nibiru is at present sending waves of charged plasmatic energy particles through our solar system. The flow of energy will finally affect the core flows of the Earth and result in catastrophic changes in Earth's climate, which is without a doubt occurring on an escalated scale. Planet Earth has been feeling the effects of this inbound planet or system of planets since 1996, with records showing a troublesome increase in seismic and volcanic activity, extreme weather patterns, and catastrophic disasters. U.S. and Russian governments are aware of its approach, as is the Vatican hierarchy, which is keeping a watchful eye on the heavens with their sophisticated telescope perched high in the mountains of Arizona. In the meantime, the public is being kept in the dark regarding this approaching apocalypse. The consensus by many is that such an event would annihilate 2/3 of the world's population, while 2/3 of those who survive the initial impact will perish over time due to starvation and exposure to the elements. The question that persists with respect to Planet X is whether this mysterious planet that scientists now claim exists beyond Pluto is the same planet that is believed to have wiped out much of humanity thousands of years ago. There is, however, more to the story than what meets the eye. Based on the research study known as extreme trans-Neptunian objects and the quasi mechanism signaling the presence of trans-Plutonian planets, posted in 2014 in the Journal Monthly Notices of the Royal Astronomical Society letters, there are at least 2 planets, part of our solar system, larger than Earth, lurking out there beyond Pluto, and whose existence can be noticed through their gravitational influences. So it is fair to say that NASA understands that these planetary objects are a serious threat to our civilization. It is widely perceived that researchers had proposed that the so-called Planet X was at least 10 times as large as Earth and was most likely situated at a distance of 250 astronomical units from our Sun, with an orbit of 10 to 20,000 years. There is an understanding that an approaching large body or a star system of planets and moons can trigger considerable differences in magnetic activity, and recent data from our magnetosphere indicates that this is what is now taking place. There were even suggestions that Google Sky had revealed an area in space that had been censored by NASA, showing the winged globe moving through our solar system. So are these subtle warnings an earnest attempt to inform us that an apocalyptic situation is at hand, which is coming from out of this world, something previously unknown to humanity, but which have memories in our subconscious from past lives and records kept over the ages? If we consider the ancient era of Atlantis and Lemuria and what happened to these civilizations, is it any wonder that NASA would redact the location of this incoming body on Google Sky or in their own imagery? Every week, NASA appears to have learned something new that was unimaginable, and yet they want us to imagine that Planet X Nibiru is unreal. As you can envision, the gravitational consequences of a sizable planet moving close to the inner solar system would spell huge problems for planet Earth. Not only are we witnessing climate extremes and a shifting of the Earth, but we are now bearing witness to the very real observations that the four seasons, as we have known them, are now blending. So with all of this in mind, we can now ascertain why certain governments are taking steps to protect their own interests as they prepare for the arrival and the aftermath of this large planetary body or system of planets moving through our solar system. Here is some news that has been widely reported, but which some of you may not be aware of. Russia recently completed building or updating some 5,000 shelters in Moscow. They actually have been quite open about what they are doing, but they haven't specifically stated the actual reason for constructing or updating these shelters. But we do know that they have some facilities that can accommodate up to 100,000 people. The United States is estimated to have over 150 deep underground military bases. Coincidentally, a huge military underground city exists below the Denver airport. Now, these are entire underground cities that have been under construction since the 1980s. But this is a need-to-know classification that is underway and is never published in advance for fear of destabilizing the economy. If you do any research of this topic, you are bound to run into various forms of disinformation. Now, some of it intentional, but much of it produced by uneducated individuals within the public. Until the discovery of Planet X, astronomers had regarded the writings of the ancient Sumerians about this object as legend. When Planet X was discovered in 1983, they suddenly learned that the Sumerians were not the primitive people they had been made out to be by intellectuals of today. Have you ever wondered what the real purpose of the Hubble Space Telescope was intended for? It was not to explore the universe and the solar system, as some have suggested. Rather, the reason for constructing this multi-billion-dollar telescope and then placing it in orbit was for the purpose of observing the inbound Planet X. A June 6th interview with a Hubble insider states this fact as to the Hubble's purpose. He watched this mysterious body through the Hubble telescope and stated that this thing looked as if it was nearby. And the Hubble got cut off, and they encrypted it, and that was the end of any transmission. So let's listen to this interview.
Back in the 1950s, most people aren't aware of it, but there was a scientific storm in America all through the late 50s about this thing out there in space because the astronomers were all watching it, and that was back when they weren't afraid to talk about it. It was in the science magazines. I mean, I had a subscription to, like, Popular Science, and hell, it was on the front cover of the magazine one day in, like, 1961. And I was really excited when I saw it because here's this giant red planet on the horizon of the California coast, and a humongous tidal wave coming in towards the coast, and having grew up in the mountains of the Sierras, and this thing in the magazine, it said this tidal wave coming in was going to be at least 3 miles high, and I went in and showed it to everybody in the house, and they laughed, and they said, look, it says right here, there's nothing to worry about. It won't be here for another 50 years. Hey, guess what? That 50 years has came and gone, and this baby's out there in the sky. They've been watching it. I watched it, and I can tell you, this thing has got so much trash coming around it. You know how we live in a solar system? We've got 9 planets and a big sun. This thing has got 7 planets and its own sun. The years as it went by and we watched it, it got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then finally, about 2008, we could see this thing like it was across the street. And we could see that it was a blazing hot ball of fire, giving out sparkles of red iron oxide dust for thousands of miles in every direction. And you could see the planets circulating it. Now, I'll tell you one thing that I really am nervous about. I think this thing's got a planet like ours circling it. This is its own solar system. We're about to have a solar system come through the middle of our solar system. This can't be good. But unfortunately, it looks as though that's what's going to happen. We were looking at asteroids. Right close to this thing, there's asteroids that are floating around right near that are orbiting the main sun itself. These things appear to be about 500 miles across. This thing looks like a giant red teardrop-shaped dust cloud. And you can see, once if you're able to see it up close like we did, you can see every speck out there. Now, these CIA people that I know say that we're not going to be that close to it when it goes past us. They're saying that in order to attain breakaway speed, when it comes up around the backside of the sun, its speed will at least double, possibly more, which will put it here earlier than everybody is saying it will, and that this thing will probably be about 20 million miles from us when it crosses in front of us. And then as soon as it flips us upside down, we're going to go into its debris field. These CIA guys told me that this pole shift will probably happen from start to finish in around 28 minutes. That doesn't give you a lot of warning. When you see that thing out there in the sky, you're going to have to run as fast as you can to your underground facility, because this is going to happen so fast. Now, see, here's another thing nobody's talking about. You've got this giant iron planet that they say is 47,000 miles across, getting ready to come up past us. And when it starts to approach us, it's going to start and have real serious effects.
So is it a planet or a failed star?
It's not a failed star. You know, I saw this thing up close. It did not look like a failed star. It looked just like our sun.
Right.
Okay. Would you call our sun a failed star?
No. Okay. Well, you had said planet. I wasn't sure if it was like a failed star brown dwarf or a full sun. So it's a full sun?
It looks to me like a miniature sun, just like the one we have. The only difference is our sun is giving off flames and stuff, and this one's doing the same thing as it, but it's giving off this red iron oxide cloud of dust around it. And until it got close, we couldn't even tell what was in there. We could see it was hot, and it looked like it was just a dull red when we were first able to discern it through the red cloud. But as it approached, it started to become more apparent that this thing is just orange hot.
Right.
And it's got this enormous, and I mean enormous, at least 50 or 100,000 miles on each side of it, this red dust cloud that goes all the way around it. I know when we were watching it, as it started to make the upward swing to approach behind our sun, it was amazing. The red dust cloud settled down. Instead of being round, it started to settle down into a V, like wings, upside-down wings.
Right.
And I thought, boy, I wonder if that's where the ancient Sumerians got the idea this thing had wings, because, you know, centrifugal force is a funny thing. When it comes back up around the planet, when we see it in the sky, my guess is it's going to look like it's got wings, because centrifugal force is going to be pulling the red iron oxide dust and particles out to one side, this thing's going to look like a big red dragon, exactly like all the ancient Sumerians and the Chinese and all the rest of them that had documented this thing's passing before. It didn't look like a white ball or a snow cloud or nothing. It looked like a big red iron oxide dust cloud with a superheated star in the middle of it. And I mean, you know, and that's what we've seen. So, you know, I don't care what anybody else says. There's a possibility. There's more than one thing out there. You know, I watched it through the Hubble Space Telescope, and when this thing looked like it was across the street, the Hubble got cut off and they encrypted it, and that was the end of any transmissions we had to watch. And we know that the Hubble, in order to be in the shadow of the Earth, had to be at an angle, and so that meant it was looking downward, and this thing was coming up underneath of us. And I tell you the honest to God truth, I personally think this thing is real close to us right now. But, you know, that's just my general feeling that, you know, and I'm a pretty psychic guy. I have the feeling that this thing is right close by and that we're going to see it any time. Okay? Because, listen, they've known about this thing forever. And I mean, they've known about it forever. I mean, if I read about it in a science magazine in 1961, that tells you that, I mean, it's only 1,800 years away. How could they not be able to see it when it came around the backside of the last sun and headed this way?
Right.
You have to know they've been watching it, because if you know, Carl Sagan was showing stuff that they took with their old telescopes that was billions and billions of miles away. And this thing's only 1,800 years away. Well, and by 1930, it was only 70 years away. You know, we do estimate that this thing, let me give you a thing, maybe you can figure out your own timeline. We estimated that this thing is traveling around 3,500 miles an hour, okay?
Okay.
That was our estimate of its speed. Now, it has been picking up speed, and that's the reason why we think it's going to arrive early, because when it comes around the backside of the sun, it's got to double that speed in order to attain breakaway speed to leave the sun and not wind up orbiting it. It's never orbited the sun in the past that we know of, so that means that it's going to have to attain breakaway speed to head back out into space. Now, you look at the NASA videos, photos, and all this other crap those morons put on the internet. This thing is coming in. It's going to, as soon as it goes around the top of the sun, it's going to go back out into space.
Right.
And it's going to do this really fast. When it goes past us, it's going to go past us so fast that we'll almost have no time to get ready. That's my opinion, but, you know, just drawing it out on paper a few times and thinking about it, and I went, you know, if this thing picks up enough speed to make breakaway speed, then that means it's going to come past us. You know, this thing, according to what I was told, is that this thing is approximately 47,000 miles in diameter, you know, 4 or 5 times the size of the Earth, and it'll come past us, and we won't have a lot of warning, and we won't get to see it in the sky until it's on us. Now, I was told that the poles are not shifting at 42 miles a year. They're shifting at 42 miles a day, and the reason is because this planet is rolling over to face this thing. Now, when it goes by, it's not going to push our North Pole away. It's going to grab our southern pole with its northern pole, and it's going to be like somebody kicked this planet in the ass. That earthquake that it talks about in Revelations, when the opening of the 6th seal comes, from what I've been told, that's very accurate, because that's exactly what's going to happen. There's going to be a massive earthquake when it locks onto us. As it goes past us, we're going to follow it right upside down. The oceans are just going to be roaring from pole to pole, as you could well guess they would, because if you take a planet that's 7,000 miles across and roll it upside down in 30 minutes, you're going to have some real serious problems with wind and water. We should be preparing to expect this thing to show up any time.
So this particular insider is stating in the most revealing terms that something ominous is heading our way that NASA has known about for decades. Nibiru, aka Planet X, and referred to by the Vatican as wormwood, has a mass that is 3 to 5 times the mass of Jupiter. Its composition is cesium, iron oxide, iron, oxygen, and ozone. And according to the interview by the Hubble Insider, it consists of 7 planets and moons that orbit it and innumerable asteroids. Its existence is known by all of the major governments of the world, and they are prepared, as I described earlier in this presentation. The object is very big, and until recently, it is a red dwarf star visible only in the infrared spectrum. The agent claims that the government is monitoring the system and that in 2008 it could be seen in high detail with infrared telescopes. But the manner of observation is beginning to change. Using deductive logic, a number of independent videos are capturing its close approach now.